What's up, Sooner Nation? What's up, Sooner fans? It is another episode of you see the Horns Down podcast up there, but we also got Jason from the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast with the coach. Shout out to Coach. Your team is in the national championship. Everything looked bleak, everything looked desolate, everything looked like it was time to abandon the ship. You hung in there, and look at you now. So thank you, Notre Dame. Thank you, Ohio State. For doing what you needed to do. I just leave it there. But we got our guy. He's finally here. Chris Mason is here as well.
There he is.
60 himself.
You said 9:30.
I thought I said 8:15. Either way, we are here, and people I know. It's been a minute. We got some stuff to talk about. Kind of light stuff, but it's still stuff that we need to talk about. Need to kind of digest. First and foremost, as Jason would say, wipe your feet, please.
Wipe your feet
on all three channels. Each channel, subscribe to each channel, do all the rest of that stuff. Chris Mason has a Patreon. Obviously, Jason has an exponential amount of shows, and also he's writing. The guy is writing again. Like y'all got this boy. I got this man doing everything he did in his power to keep your attention. So definitely go and check out these articles, the videos, all the rest of this stuff, because the content is on the way. But when we get together, we're going to have a good time. Not here for a long time tonight, but we're here for a good time. So that being said, let's go ahead and bump out some stuff. I'll put on my lawyer hat real quick, and let's talk about this executive order that was issued by Governor Stitt. So essentially, there are 4 things that you need to know, okay, about this. About 4.5, 5 maybe, okay? First thing, obviously, is the biggest thing. You can play. Schools here in Oklahoma can pay players directly. So that in itself is a huge win. That is amazing. Second thing is even better. They're protected. So NCAA, conferences, whoever wants to come and try to litigate this issue, they can't, right? So they're barred from it. They can press it in court. However, this is what's happening, okay? They would have to ask for an injunction, basically trying to get a restraining order on this to prevent everything from happening. Third thing is that, hey, this executive order is basically going to kind of shift to what you would kind of call semi-law or just law, and it has an ending point, right? Either A, there's going to be some litigation and a final settlement that comes out of this where parties come to terms, whether that would be the NCAA and these secondary and these post-secondary schools, OSU and OU, obviously. So something comes out of there, they reach an agreement, they settle it. Okay, well, that is going to be the new order now, right? Or if there's a federal law that is enacted. One thing people are not talking about with this executive order is that it levels the playing field, not only for OU and OSU externally, right? Meaning leaving out of this state when you're talking about, Texas A&M, all the rest of these people who are these places where I think some of their legislation is allowing them to pay their players directly, right? But it also levels the playing field here within the state, because now, it's not a thing about OU versus OSU. It's a thing about OU is in the SEC, OSU is still in the Big 12. So you're in different conferences. So if the conferences themselves enact some type of rules and regulations around it, then both schools are still protected to the point where they can go and pay their players directly. So that is pretty much the 4 points, 4.5, 5 points. However, if you're still counting, that is the 4.5, 5 points that you need to know about this executive order. You could pay players directly. You're protected by basically it's law here in Oklahoma. They can't do anything about it. If they want to press that issue, they can. Good luck. As an ending point to it, federal law is enacted, or there's some type of litigation where a final settlement comes out, and then that becomes a new order. And then OU, OSU, they get to be on level playing fields, paying players directly. Granted, they're in different conferences. So that is really at a very high level, exactly what you need to know about this executive order. I have to read these things all the time for my job now. So it's one of those things where definitely all over this whenever it came out. So that is my piece. Taking the lawyer hat off, guys. I'll pass it to you, Jason. You first. What are your thoughts about?
Well, I was going to ask you a question. Do you feel like this is an advantage for Oklahoma in and of itself, being that we're one of the first to be able to be at this point?
It's always a first. I mean, this is a great move by the governor, honestly, to help out OU, OSU, whoever's paying NIL, whether it's UCO or Northwestern State, Nalva, whoever the hell is paying NIL. This is a great move right here because it's progressive and you're staying current. So it's an amazing move, and it gives OU all the leverage in the world. We talk about billionaire boosters and all the rest of that stuff. The next step would be maybe try to figure out some way to interact with maybe the 5 civilized tribes or something like that to that effect. That is a different conversation for a different day and for a different podcast. We're not going to get into all of that, but just saying, you really have some money that you could play with here in Oklahoma. You don't have to go long and far to try to figure out where it's at. It's there. You just have to continue to mold this and continue to figure things out, and as you navigate this course. But in short, it's a great move for OU especially.
That's kind of the way I felt about it too, is, because it sounded like they kind of piggybacked off of what they saw coming out of Ohio and Georgia. Obviously, you've got two of the best programs in the country there, and they're ahead of the game when it comes to the NIL structure and the way that they're kind of getting things going with their high school kids and with everybody else. So allowing it, to be able to go directly through the school, I think that allows you, as well as something that I heard, from Josie when he was talking about it, was that it also helps to be able to be tax deductible for some of these donors. A lot of people that wouldn't necessarily get involved, especially on the high end of stuff. Mm-hmm. You got big donors that, if they put out a couple $1 million, then they're probably going to want to have that come off the taxes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
tax write-offs mean everything. Sure. Here, as somebody who was a former 1099 guy when I was being a more so less like a private counsel, I guess you could say. 1099, being able to write off everything is crucial to the point. So even for the people with just a crazy amount of money, right? Still a huge thing. So no, being able to give them that's great. But as Oklahoma is navigating this, this is huge because it just gives you more leverage, because now you're not behind the 8 ball, because there will be some states who will be hesitant to enact or even enact laws or even put out executive orders like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think no matter what, you have to evolve, and if you're showing nimbleness and being able to move quickly in the space, staying ahead of things is always going to be better than coming in behind. So be right up there at the cutting edge of what they're doing, and as you evolve and see this thing evolve over time, because I think it's pretty clear that things are completely different than they were even a year ago, and as certainly 5-6 years ago. You're at a time that it's going to continue to evolve on a large scale. So I think that being able to stay out in front of the rules and what you can see coming is big for Oklahoma football.
Mm-hmm. And this only entices more and more and more big time donors to continue donating to these collectors or whatever it's going to be, because it changes like once every 4 months, right? It's changing, whether it's an NIL collective or it's just the schools paying them directly or whatever. It's changing, but it's enticing more people now to come to the table. And I think what you're trying to do is that I don't think that you need 40 billionaires to go and fund your program. Yeah, that'd be amazing. But I think that if you could find consistent people, whether that is, make up a word, thousandaires, right? Or you have your millionaires or all the above, right? You're just trying to entice people, these people or these groups to become consistent donors year in and year out. That's the biggest thing.
So what I kind of see from this is from a recruiting perspective and sort of stuff that I've been hearing is the big time programs we think about, like Alabama, Georgia, OU, Texas. They need to get this out of the collectives and into their regular fundraising mechanism, because they're starting to find that the funny thing about millionaires is they don't like putting money in with no return of investment.
That's right.
Right? Rich people don't just give money away. That's not how you get rich. So, I mean, so what I've been hearing in the background is that a lot of schools like Bama and Georgia, which are just not, they're land grant universities. They're not rich private schools with just money falling out of the sky. This collective model is not sustainable for the big land grant universities, for the majority of them. They need to get this into the regular fundraising mechanisms that they have, where folks, especially big money donors who establish trusts and things like that, are able to say, well, we're giving the university $1 million a year to the athletic, we're giving $1 million a year to the athletic department. It's a write-off for the trust, as you said, the tax part of this. It's also easier to be built in from will perspective. I've been here like will perspectives and stuff like that, and from managed trusts, large money managed trusts. Getting this in-house is where it has to be for the schools to be able to get more money. Is that this big NIL dollar thing is sort of drying up. That big money donors are like, look, I'm happy to continue doing this, but I need to know that this money is going to the university in general. Even Notre Dame, Notre Dame's not a big NIL school. I mean, they have the academic part of it as well. I mean, that's not a Notre Dame's investing their money in lots of different places.
NIL, that's not an issue with NIL, but they're not. That's not where
that's out of their mission statement. They're not touching any of that. So what I'm saying is, if you have like a big, I'm sorry, I'm a little stuffy. A big land grant university, they've got to move this in-house to really allow their donor population to really help them, because the people. The Miami guy who's just throwing money around, that's a one-off. Larry Ellison helping Michigan that's like a one-off. They're starting to hit the wall. I mean, that's a whole
sports though.
Yeah. They're starting to hit a wall with how this NIL thing works. They need to get the fundraising in-house. They need to be able to start distributing the money from the university and get these guys as employees, because the inflation escalation going on it's like money from the Weimar Republic in Germany in the 1920s. This is how we ended up with Adolf Hitler, right? I mean, it's like 2 million Weimar dollars to buy a loaf of bread. The escalation here, it's not sustainable. No. So I think, Chris and Jason, I think this allows Oklahoma to be ready to start doing that. Start moving, legalize marijuana, put a 100% tax on it. That's the way to go.
Do it everywhere else.
Do it everywhere. That's the part of this I think people aren't seeing behind the background. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff flashing around that Texas has tried to go back to their big money guys, and they're like, no, get this in-house. Get this so that I can donate 5 to the university, 2 to the athletic department, and I can just write it off. And I don't need to worry about where my money's going, who's getting paid on time, or any of this crap. Get it moved in-house, and we'll commit an annual donation for you so you can start budgeting for this correctly.
So one thing, and I would even say, even the Texas fans that are coming in here, one thing I would say to you guys, I guess waving the white flag right now, just trying to call peace, is that if you're a Texas fan, you love seeing Governor Stitt do this. You love seeing that. Why? It's copycat, right? Oklahoma did some things early on when this whole NIL thing came about. And I remember our friend of a show, Ty Hayes, Around the Table Sports, Ty and I did a couple of pods about this, and we said, like, hey, Bama and some of these other places or whatever, they just copy whatever Oklahoma and Texas were doing, right? Because it looked like those were the two states that were trying to be as active as possible with like actual real legislation and political figures spearheading this whole thing, right? So, I mean, if you're a Texas fan, you got to think like, okay, there should be some calm in this storm, some place where we can just kind of chill out and just let this all figure itself out. Because when Oklahoma gets pretty progressive, that's whenever Texas gets pretty progressive, and that's kind of vice versa as far as those laws. So, I mean, this right here, it should help a lot of teams out there simply because now somebody has already stepped up and done it, right? And now you just have to basically mimic or mirror what they're doing. So the blueprint is out there, it's just for others to follow if they so choose to. But biggest thing is that, you know, those you got to have some type of return on your investment, right? And so I think a part of that as well is you know, yeah, we're good enough to get there. Are we good enough to win it? You know, because you kind of got to look at Ole Miss as well. Ole Miss has made moves in the portal, but I don't think they made moves like they did last year, where they pretty much sold out just to go for it all. You know, so I mean, times are changing.
And they're running into some issues though, trying to get more money again because they got all that money and they expected them to go in and make the playoff, and they didn't do it. So, you know, you're going to find some of these folks, even at the big money schools, that have that kind of, because they have money at Ole Miss. It's not a money problem.
Yeah.
But they're not just going to give it away. As Chris Mason was just saying, you're not just going to hand over. You didn't get rich by handing over money and just, you know, throwing good money with bad money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. So the expectations are going to start growing. Now, I would say this. It doesn't mean that you're not going to still see the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, I think, because in the end, when you start looking at right now, you're going into a rev share model as long as everything passes with the whole, and I don't know that that's even really a situation where the lawsuit is going to go through or whatever, you know, the settlement that they came up with on House versus NCAA. But I would say that in the end, you start looking at this in terms of, yes, if the rev share passes, that's everybody's going to be paying out $20.5 million. But that doesn't include the NIL. And I think it makes it kind of murky in some of these spots. You're still going to have the ability to go out there and pay these guys, you know, with the big bag stuff, you know, and I think you're going to continue to see that. You heard Michigan talking about paying $55 million in 2026 for NIL, not for rev share, for NIL.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to continue to be, I think it's still going to be a rich gets richer kind of deal.
The whole thing, the thing that could stabilize this, and I go back to it. Okay, so you know, this is kind of my theory right here, and we'll wrap this up with a question from the chat. But and Chris Mason, I'll let you go. But you know, a couple of weeks ago, talking to my aunt, I think I was on Ty's show again, Around the Table Sports. Go check him out, obviously, if you haven't. But big thing that I said was this right here is that, okay, if you want to do anything, do kind of like a cap. So I would say first and foremost, I think that you can go and get some retired or like younger, like NFL scouts to come into these respective conferences. They have the same rubrics, same guidelines, same everything. Have them grade these players year in and year out. And so there needs to be some type of uniformity that across the board for it all as far as the rubric. So there's not anybody getting, you know, just because you play in the SEC and this guy plays in the Big 12, you know, you do have to look at that or whatever, but you're truly trying to grade these players. Not going to be a perfect system all the time, but it's something there, right? And so those players get this A players get this tier of money. Players in S class get this tier of money. Players in B class, C class, and so on and so forth. But then also, I think where you could realistically add a cap is to the high school players. Now, granted, yeah, this kid is a 5-star player. Granted, yes, this kid is this and that and more, that and more. But we've seen this year here, had a 5-star guy, didn't play like a 5-star guy. Did he have all the help? That's the podcast for a different day. I'm not trying to throw shots, Jason, this time. All I'm saying is that we've seen 5-stars come here, and Chris Mason can go down the list of 5-star recruits that have came here and not panned out, right? So the whole thing is that you could put a cap on those kids as far as this 5-star here, $500,000. That is his cap. Any school he want to go to, whatever the case may be, $500,000, and so on and so forth. As far as putting a realistic cap there, I think something towards that could help all this stuff going forward, because if you put a cap on the high school kids to try to say, hey, look, we're going to even this out and we're going to try to put more, because what they're doing now, especially with this portal, as we're going to talk about move into this portal window, they're putting more, I think, power back into the coaches and the schools' hands with this whole transfer portal. But I think that if you actually put a cap on the high school kids as far as what they can make, granted their grades and their, because we already have scouts for them, right? With On3, Rivals, 247 Sports, we have all these different rubrics. Nobody cares about ESPN, but still, if you sit back and think about it, if we put a cap on the high school kids coming in, not talking about what they can make year 2, year 3, whatever. Fact of the matter is, I think that would help stabilize this conversation, or at least NIL in some aspects.
Yeah, I mean, I think, once you have the House agreement signed, then I think you move rapidly to the SEC and the Big 12 and the Big 10 saying, we're going to collectively bargain with our athletes. We're going to get a CBA in. And then we know every time you have a CBA, right, that the veterans want the money, and they're not going to give the rookies the money, right? Mm-hmm. That's how it works in the NFL. That's how it works in the NBA. Major League Baseball doesn't really have a cap that makes any sense. But as witnessed by, the $1 billion contract. So that's the way it'll work out, right? Is that once you put a CBA, the existing players will sign it. Freshmen will join, and that's the way it'll shake out. Is that, if you're a third-year returning All-American, you're going to get X. You're going to be X pool. If you're a 5-star, all right, it's just like a lottery pick, right? You're going to get more money than the end of the lottery. The first pick gets more than the 31st, right? And the teams can decide who they want to give how they want to parse out that, and how they want to do all those things. So I think all that stuff is coming. But yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how it all gets worked out. One last thing, just from the finances of all this, and it's just a dirty little secret that I don't think we've really dug into as Oklahoma fans, because it doesn't impact us. OU is one of the few athletic departments that doesn't get kickbacks from the university. There's a lot of athletic departments out there that are dependent upon university funds to survive. Mm-hmm. And once that starts, all of a sudden, when you start raising tuition to pay for, the paid athletes and the scholarship paid athletes, that's where the rubber is going to hit the road, and where legislatures are going to start saying, what's going on here? And if you notice, if I believe I'm right on this about the executive order, please correct me, Chris, if I'm wrong. Part of it says that, the legislative money can't be used to pay athletes.
Facts.
So OU has that covered. But there are a lot of places, if you look at the schools that actually make money and actually have that are in the black as an athletic department.
Right.
If this law goes into place, I mean, somewhere like Ole Miss, who maybe isn't, maybe they're in the red, I don't know, but I know a lot of schools like Vandy and other places, they are wholly dependent on running their athletic department on university funds. Now, Vandy's a private school, but again, your board of directors at Vandy or some other places may be like, no, you're not redirecting. Here's the money you got.
Yeah.
Go make it work.
Yeah, no, there. I think that, and that was strategic. You're not going to allow OU just to pull from taxpayer money that's reserved for not only that state institution, but also, I mean, these other state agencies. I mean, we got a crap ton of state agencies here in Oklahoma, so that money's going to have to be put to good use. And I think a lot of people, taxpayers are not going to want, unless they're giving it willingly, they're not going to want their tax dollars going towards getting Junte Cook out of the portal, right?
Yeah, I mean,
when you're out there making $75 million a year just from your television deal as well, you know, you're out there making the big money as it is. So you're in the big conference. You need to be able to live within your means like that, and be able to compete in that conference as well with what you have. Now, I would say that's where you start looking and seeing that the Big 12 and the ACC for that matter, they're going to end up falling behind quite a bit over the next few years because of the fact that we've already seen that the NCAA, every time they try to make a rule that if it has anything to do with limiting your ability to move around or which limits your ability to quote unquote earn through NIL and that kind of deal, they're not going to have it. The courts have shut that down completely. I would, venture to say that what's going to probably cause this to get lined up into at least some semblance of, slotting players and what they're supposed to make and like having more of a uniform thing is going to have to come from the television executives, because the product cannot suffer and continue to have guys just moving freely, year after year after year, and the product suffers on the field.
You have to mess with. I mean, a quick fix for that is just messing with eligibility. You could transfer as many damn times as you want, but after that, but whenever you get on that second transfer, got to sit out a year. I mean, to me, that is the biggest deal. You can make all the NIL that you want,
except they've already shut that down at the court level when they tried to make it a one-time deal, and they were like, no, you can't do that, because then you're messing with their ability to make money through their name, image, and likeness.
But it was the NCAA. Nobody. I think that if a conference, I think like the SEC that had more pull, because like we always say, and we'll end it here.
You cannot accept a transfer after a certain amount of time, or if they come from a certain
right.
School.
Well, maybe this is a good gateway to talk about the new portal rules, because
it is
it's the time to do that.
Yeah, because we all know that the SEC has somehow had a no post-spring transfers policy for a couple of seasons, and it's stuck for some reason.
Yeah.
Oh, within the conference, they can still transfer
within the conference, right? So, but they had a rule like that was able to that stuck for some. I don't know that everybody's challenged it, so it's been weird. But
well, you have to be fighting with the SEC, and at the school level, they're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a different. Like you said,
that wanted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can we, if you guys don't mind, just one thing before we truly switch over to this one right here. Corporate Duck, shout out to my guy Corporate Duck. He says, was there anything in the legislation that forces JJF to no longer be on staff? Genuine question. Look, I read it like 3 or 4 times. I read it actually about 6 times. I was looking for that exact clause. Didn't find it.
I found that offensive, sir.
my guy Stevie G in here, if he had it his way, we'd be packing his bags tonight. So we're still looking for it, still trying to figure that out. Chris Mason said February 1st, we are holding him to that. If he is not, we're going to bring him front and center. Jason and I will be in the green room.
Tar and feather this man.
Exactly. You will tar and feather and throw stones at this man right here.
Well, okay, no way. If that's what's happening to me, what do I get if I'm right?
Nothing. You're the one that offered it up, buddy boy.
All right. So, hey, switching gears real quick, guys. We're gonna go ahead and talk about kind of this 10-day portal. If you guys haven't heard or been in the know, then as far as this 10-day portal is concerned, January 2nd through the 12th of the 25 through 26 athletic year. So basically next year this time, there will be one portal. No fall portal or whatever, the early portal, no spring portal. It will be one portal for 10 days.
If this course goes through, as you know.
Yeah, the coaches have asked for it. It has to go to the whatever the steering committee is for football these days. So
it needs to happen, though. This is a situation where you can't have free agency going on at multiple times throughout the year. I think we've noticed that as it goes. The argument on my show this morning, notwithstanding with Big Mike Boganowski, I think that makes it fair for everybody if it's at the end of the portal cycle, because in my opinion, and this is the only way I can even possibly look at it, is, right now you're seeing a lot of these players getting attacked for doing what's best for them because they have to leave. We talk about the Penn State backup quarterback that left before the playoff. If Drew Aller gets hurt, that's a bad deal for them, because all of a sudden their backup guy is not in the portal, and that it didn't happen. Good for them. They ended up getting to the semifinal, but the truth of the matter is it could have turned into a real sticky situation for Penn State and anybody. And all you're waiting on is for that shoe to drop. And guess what? It shouldn't have to be that way. And these kids should not have to make that choice on their future moving forward because of the fact that if they wait, then there's only going to be a certain number of those positions out there at these schools that are going to pay you the right amount of money, give you that starting position. By the time you get right now, you're standing at it's January 15th. The portal closed for everybody else essentially on the 28th of December. We're talking 18 days. So here you are, these guys that are playing in the national championship game. Now, if they were to leave their football team right now, what does that look like to the rest of the country? All of a sudden, whether you're a backup, whether you even play or not, it doesn't really matter. But imagine the first time that a quarterback decides to leave, right at the start of it, and they could go through and get a national championship, but he knows that he has to do this in order to make some money. You know what I mean? Or to get the right situation for himself. In this situation, you wouldn't have to do that. You don't have to worry about that. You get to wait with everybody else. The slots already are full completely because of the fact that nobody else is in the portal either. I've always thought that it's ridiculous to think that you have to have it done by certain time in January when you have online classes, things that you can do. It's not this enrollment period. You can extend it a little bit to make this work, because let's not get it twisted and act like school is really a big deal for these folks at this point. Or that it will continue to be so.
I think on the other hand of the argument kind of for it, honestly, is that it makes it more intentional now, because you have 10 days. So you're not sitting there saying, oh, yeah, you better have a plan as far as what you want to do, like you have the schools. And this is going to allow a little bit more back channeling to be a little bit more open and visible, simply because, it's already happening. People are tampering left and right. You see coaches trying to call other coaches out and stuff or whatnot. But regardless, it's going to open it up to where it's going to have to be somewhat of a thing. You're being in contact. But essentially, biggest thing is that it makes it intentional for the recruit and for the coaches as well, because every, next year this time, I already know. I know Chris Mason. I know you guys. I know Sooner Insider. I know that Sooner Scoop. I know Jay and Coop, Unfair Sports. I know all of them are going to be bumping out content. PG, I know they're going to be bumping out constant content about all of this stuff, because now it's going to be really high stakes, because every single recruit that plans a visit with you, it's going to be very, very intentional. Because now these kids are going to have to go from, unless they just want to travel cross country, if they got an offer at Penn State, if Penn State, Florida State, Florida, then they have to jump and say, okay, well, I'm going to go to Arkansas, and then I'm going to go to Oklahoma, and then I'm going to end everything in Texas. But where are you from, kid? Oh, well, I'm from Wyoming, right? If they want to make that run, they can make that run.
Well, it's 10 days to get in the portal.
10 days to get in the portal?
Not to sign. You got forever to sign. You could sign somebody out of the portal from last year.
Well, my interpretation, I thought it was just those 10 days where you had those 10 days to make
10 days to get in. Now, of course, you as Jason said, you got to figure out how you academically make this work, right?
Yeah.
So you could be in the portal, stay at the school you're staying at, pay your own way or whatever, or figure it out, take your online classes or withdraw and do some online classes somewhere else to keep your eligibility going, and then show up in May. You could show up in May or June for summer workouts if you wanted to. So it's all about just, these are the guys I'm losing off my roster, and this is the time period where I'm going to lose them.
Correct.
But still, kind of going back to the point I was making, I still think it kind of sticks, because even in those 10 days, yes, you still have time, but me, I'm thinking more so of like the top tier recruits, like the top
you're gonna
150 guys that's coming out, that's gonna go into the portal, right? Because they're gonna declare early. There's gonna be probably about 30 or 40 of them that already know where they're going, right? But still within that window or whatnot, because times are gonna be dire, you're gonna want to start getting your NIL money as soon as possible. So you're gonna want to be able to, basically sign pretty much close to the end of that window as far as being able to enter. So, I mean, yes, you could take your time or whatnot, but we all know, let's be real, college football, just like the NFL, it's a year round. It is year round. You may get a month and a half.
The money doesn't stay flowing for very long.
Exactly. Yeah, like
it's free agency time. This is free.
You're gonna have to get in camp, especially for these portal guys, because the expectation is going to be you're going to be on campus for winter workouts, spring ball, summer camps, and then fall camps as well. So, I mean, it's going to be more of an expectation thrust upon these guys coming into the portal, because they're going to already have an expectation that, hey, the drill, exactly what we're supposed to do. My high school guys, some of them may actually come in the summer, but for now, you need to have your ass on campus. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a thing where some kids have, unless like, I don't know,
that part of the deal out or something.
Yeah,
Well, but to your point though, if you are good enough, right, you could go in the portal in January, say I'm in the portal, and then say, guys, you know what? I've got my academic stuff taken care of. I don't really need to play spring at your place. Just another chance for me to get hurt. After spring,
you're probably gonna end up seeing that too.
After spring,
the only places that would happen would be like,
come find me. Come find me. If you're good enough, right? Like if you're good, like Micah Parsons skipped his last year at Penn State, right? If you're good enough, you can leverage it. But for what we see mostly in the portal, and I'm going to steal a phrase from my podcast, my partner sometimes, Caleb, is when I'm talking about him in the portal, he says, I see a lot of mediocre getting bounced back and forth between colleges. There's the true difference makers, very few. And what we're seeing is a lot of guys who probably should be staying where they at, get developed, get better, hopping in the portal and making bad business decisions.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to see is less of that. We're going to see in the college, but for the coaches have been using the portal as kind of a kick to the curb mechanism. This portal change is going to require you to be, you're going to need to make sure your high school recruits are guys you really want, because you're going to need to keep and evaluate them. The portal, let's just say the portal is giving you a 30% attrition rate, right?
Yeah.
With this change, it could drop to 15. Because I think I agree,
because I also think that you're going to start getting more of the JUCOs are now open for business again too, with what you've seen with the ruling just recently, where they're allowing those years to not count against your eligibility in FBS. So that's going to allow a lot of that. It's going to turn them into prep schools, and so a lot of these kids are going to already have been through a college program as far as a weight program and nutrition and all that. So they're going to be more attractive, unless we're talking about the high 4s and 5 stars. You're going to see a lot more 3s and stuff ending up at JUCO ball, I think, or smaller schools.
Yeah, because there's just going to be fewer scholarship openings out there. I mean, okay, so let's just talk about a player who we felt like left OU, and really, why did he leave OU? So I'm just going to use an example of a guy, and I'm not criticizing him. He did what he felt like he needed to do. based upon the way the portal worked today. All right. Like Lewis Carter. Okay. Really, if we get 5-year eligibility, which is also, I think, going to be pushed through this year, someone like Lewis Carter is probably better off with 5-year eligibility, and this smaller transfer window is probably better staying at Oklahoma, being our second-team linebacker, developing, and then his senior year takes over for Kip Lewis, has been developed, is a real player. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys are jumping because they're kind of like, it's my 3rd year, I need to start playing somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that's part of the 4-year window. If it's a 5-year window, that calculation changes.
Well, that's coming. That's already that's basically a done deal.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of the mediocre in college football who I wish he would have stayed too. But I mean, in the current circumstance, he had to leave. With 4-year eligibility and with the way everyone's jumping in the portal for money, and OU being forced to say, we got to cut you loose, really, basically. They wanted to keep Lewis Carter, but you had to pay Kip Lewis a certain amount of money, and that I'm just saying that all these things are going to start balancing out, and a lot of guys just transferring to transfer in a way to just try and find more money. It's going to evaporate because you're going to take a redone contract at your other place because free agency's got nothing for you. But I do think we'll see some players, some unique, high-profile guys say, yeah, I'm in the portal. Get back to me in May. I've got academics taken care of. I don't need to go through spring and get hurt.
Well, the money dries up by May, though. But
the money also schools get desperate after spring.
They do.
So it works both. We'll see a couple of guys try this, if I was a quarterback, I'd especially try this. If I was a mid-range quarterback, exactly. If you're a Quinn Ewers, I'd skip. I mean, you're not getting drafted in the NFL, but that's just my own personal opinion.
He's getting a second-round grade right now, from what I've.
Come on, really?
Look, man. Listen, man. We've seen worse guys going.
That's certainly true. I mean, he. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fine. All right. Whatever.
I'm not to take up for Quinn, but
Okay. All right. But if you were Quinn Ewers, right? I would sit out and just say, after X 5-star redshirt freshman tanks at the Buckeye spring game and looks like dog crap. And I don't know that he will, but let's just say, just a hypothetical example, or Dante Moore, God forbid something happens. I'm not wishing an injury on somebody, right? But let's just say 5-star freshman who you think you're a big time program gets hurt somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm a mid-range quarterback, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna sit back and see what's left on the plate, and it's a gamble. But you can't tell me that after. Okay, all right, corporate duck, you are correct.
I mean,
you
ain't wrong.
You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. You can hit us with all the kind of examples with hindsight. I'm just saying, I think it's an interesting process. Now, poor Jason and I bored the crap out of the coach going 9 rounds on when we should do this on his pod a couple of weeks ago.
Oh Lord.
I think we finally, Jason, did we sort of agree that like February should be when they really should do it? Was that what you thought?
I feel like it has to be at the end of the season. I don't mind it being in January, but I think that you can adjust some of these,
dates. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can adjust some of these dates to make it work. The main thing is that I think we did agree on the one point of, look, you can't just have free agent forever.
Yeah. One time period, right? One time period to enter where you're
put these kids in a bad position to have to make that choice.
Yeah. So I think, Chris, I think this is a step in the right direction. But I tell you what were the dates again? January. Do you have them in front of you?
What's the question you're asking?
The 10 days where you can enter the portal.
2 to 12.
So January 2nd through the 12th.
Yeah.
A question for Stevie G. Can we get back to Stevie G's question in just a second? Because I think I have a good answer.
Right.
I mean, that's a no-dose methamphetamine, fest for anybody following college football. I mean, that's going to be 10 days of apps. I mean, Twitter may burn to the ground the servers.
Yeah, but
it's going to be. No, I'm just saying it's going to be fascinating to watch what happens. I mean, when
it's just those few days though. But I think you are right. In the view of the fact that you just have to get in it at that point. It could stretch on, just like free agency still going to have. I mean, here's the deal. Once you get there, and if you're not in the playoff,
look at Teddy Bridgewater just re-signed and joined the NFL team, right?
Right. Well, what I'm getting at though is that it's not like you're not going to still have guys' agents or whoever their handlers are and stuff like that making contacts whenever they're done for their season. If you're not in the playoff, it's not going to really affect it. You're still going to be making. Look, the tampering will continue. They're already going to have everything planned out to begin with. You're not going to enter the portal unless more times than not, unless you have a suitor already or have it kind of set up. And even if you are playing deep into it, that doesn't mean you don't have somebody working this out for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I'm just saying it'll be an intense 10 days
in the world and transfer in the free agent period of the NFL. Come on.
Yeah, it'll be an intense 10 days the first time. So
for sure.
We'll see what's going on with that, but it'll be intense. So, question for Mr. Mason: if the portal is mostly mediocre, what portal player of OU's is going to be the biggest boom? Okay, the guy we got, who I think is going to be the biggest boom, is going to be, I think, Giovanni Gibson. That's the biggest boom. I think that's the biggest boom we got. If you're talking to guys we lost, I think if they use him correctly, Deshaun McCullough is going to be the guy that's going to have the biggest boom. That if you just use him right, OU was a little bit square peg round hole with him. Didn't quite find the right spot for him. If they find the right spot for him at Nebraska, right?
Yeah, he'll be a dog again.
At Nebraska, he'll be fine. If you're talking, guy I think who's probably just going to end up being somewhere else and being somewhere else and somewhere else again, it's going to be, I think, the guy, sadly, I think it's going to be Jaquez Petaway. I think he'll be back in the portal again, and we're just sort of like, okay, he's just sort of jumping around. Obviously, he's not Jonte Cook, clearly. But I do think, of the guys we picked up, and I'm only saying this after watching Gabe Eichard's review of him, maybe the tight end guy is going to be more functional than we thought. The Kennesaw State tight end kid. He's going to be more functional than we thought. We think we're getting something that's basically short of just a live body with a pulse. Looking at what Gabe's breakdown on him, maybe there's a little bit more there than we thought. But that's a guess right. That's a guess right now.
Guy that can block. We're just looking for a utility player, guy that could possibly play some H-back. It really is dependent. How much you see him is really dependent on how. Really, two things. One is can Mitchell take that leap and become the guy, or B, can Caden Helms stay healthy for a full year? For a full year starting today.
Yeah, I think that's the, if you're talking the super sleeper of our portal class, I think is the Luke Balenko kid. I don't know that Joe John. I don't know that guy's one of Joe John's players, but we'll see.
I mean,
I'm still hoping a change is coming there. But I think if you're talking like long term, we look back and go, man, that was a really big pickup. I think it might be the Balenko kid. Stanford offensive lineman, big kid. He's played, smart kid. He's got a redshirt year to develop if need be. If all the guys come back healthy and our seniors aren't just all injured as they were last year, that's the guy who could slip in, and all of a sudden we're like, wow, that Baklenko kid, he really helped us out. He did.
Seems like people want us to kind of mention this right here. Is this something that you guys have heard?
Well, it's all over the scoop, the Scoops content on
talking
YouTube.
it. It's
They're
going
coming.
around.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
going around.
he played fullback and basically played fullback, wildcat, single wing T QB, if you want to say. I mean, if he can help there, great. Obviously, you'd want Cade McIntyre to be healthy and kind of tying up that position a little bit. But if Canick can help us there, I mean, use the roster any way you can to grind out every win you can, right? And if Canick can do something for you for 8 to 10 plays there that helps, more power to him. If he can do that, great. I don't see any problem. I don't see any problem giving it a shot in spring. And spring's the time to experiment, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes on some levels,
It seems like everybody wants you
You
guys to
explain to them why you said Giovanni Gibson instead of Mateer so that they will relax here for a second.
Well, but okay, guys, Mateer is a effing given, right?
Yeah.
If Mateer isn't, look, Mateer was the number one guy in the portal by everybody.
So it's not
the
making a
ranking.
huge splash. You expect him to do what he does, right?
It's like me saying that my surprise freshman of influence is Michael Fasusi. Oh, way to go out on a limb there, Chris. Talk about the number one offensive lineman maybe in the country coming out of the All-Star games. Looks like he's, way to go out on a limb. Like, who do you think is the NFL prospect out of the recruiting class? Well, let me go out on a limb here and say David Stone last year. I think maybe he has an NFL future. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, I think, I've heard a lot of people say, the Arizona Pine Bluff nonsense and the level of his competition. So to me, in my opinion, we need a big wide receiver. We need someone to do something for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gibson, when the moving photos, he looks freaking huge. And we got nothing else to go on but that, right? The moving photos, he looks absolutely huge. So to me, Giovanni Gibson, I think, is the guy that no one was like saying, we got Giovanni Gibson and we're doing a dance party in the street. So that's why I said him. I think he's the guy.
They're actually saying, what the hell? Why are we going after FCS?
Yeah, a lot of people were saying the exact opposite. So,
I think Satanga could be big for us as far as being more consistent.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like and again,
I think you can say that about any of the receivers because of how little production we got from wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, and the freshman wide receivers and our two injury guys coming back. So, but I do think that for the most part, and I'll stick with this, the portal, we're seeing a lot of medium guys getting swapped around who aren't going to make a lot of impact at their various locations. Did we get any of those guys? Yeah, I think there's a chance we picked up some of that as well. We've got some guys that aren't going to make a big difference to our program. I think there's a chance Marvin Jones Jr. sort of falls in that category. We get out of him what he basically did at FSU last year. That's a distinct possibility. I think Kendall Daniels is a little different a case because he's had 2 years of sort of elite production before whatever was going on with OSU last year. The team quit after the Arkansas game. But I think, overall with the portal, you're trading a lot of, guys looking for something different place, but there's not a lot of elite guys. Walter Nolan is not in this year's portal, right? The Umalian kid is not in this year's portal. The Florida one, not the Nebraska one, moving to Ole Miss. Kyle Kennard, the kid from Georgia Tech that went to South Carolina. I don't see anybody in the portal that has his kind of skills, at least not right now. Maybe that'll change. But I just don't think you see the offensive linemen, same thing. You don't have the A&M meltdown where all that talent left. You don't have the Stanford meltdown where all that talent left the year before. To me, the portal, everyone's like, we're missing all these guys. Get this guy in the portal. Get this guy in the portal. It's just like, ignore their ignore their high school ranking. Tell me what they've done in college that makes you think we need to be spending big money to get any of these guys. And to me, Mateer's the only guy that we should have spent big money on, and I think we did, because the number one issue we had was quarterback. We had the worst quarterback play in the SEC. Is that arguable? I don't think it is from a stats wise. I think you could dig up every stat you needed to say that's true. So you got a guy who, and then you factor in the offensive coordinator part of this, which I think it's foolish to ignore, right? That Mateer allows us to install this new offense X times faster than if you didn't have Mateer. And that is invaluable in getting a new offense ready to play Michigan week 2 of the season.
Yep. Feasting time. He'll be on the menu. He'll be on the menu that day.
So, Chris Mason, go ahead. Let's try to close this out with some recruiting. What you got for us?
Well, the guys have been on the road, so there's 2 new names for you to think about. Let me make sure I can get these names right because they are brand new for Sooner fans, relatively speaking. The first, I'm going to give you 3 new defensive line names. One is Tavion Branch from Pennsylvania. He's a 6'4", 6'5", 290-pound defensive tackle. He will be on campus on 125 for junior day. His junior film is excellent, and Bates has already been out to visit him once. The next is a defensive end called, I think they want me to say Kyhamron Johnson. Yeah, I'm going to go with Kyhamron Johnson. The first name's a little iffy for me. He's from Alabama, 6'5", 260. He's 6'5". I saw him standing next to Chavis. Chavis just visited him last week. He's also going to be in Norman on 125. And then the other name, and I just confirmed something here. This is a defensive tackle from Finland who emigrated to Finland from Cameroon. He is 6'4", 320 pounds. He dominated the Navy Combine. Looked fantastic. His name is Valdin Sone. And Daniel Akinkimi played with him in NFL Europe and says he's really good. So that's a breaking piece of news for you guys. Just got that off the hopper. So OU is clearly trying to go big on defensive line in this recruiting class. They're adding new names and literally going around the world looking for talent everywhere. So Valdin was in Norman in November. I think there's a good chance he'll probably be back on campus in January. Also, the other big thing was the Navy All-American game had a combine, and Jaden O'Neal was basically part of the combine, and he looked effing fantastic. He looked absolutely awesome. Won the quarterback trophy. Was the number 2 player there. The number 1 player was Faison Brandon, another quarterback, and they ranked him ahead of Jaden, but said it was basically 1A, 1B. And Faison's the number 1 player in the country, 5-star. So Jaden O'Neal looking like a 5-star quarterback, looking just absolutely elite at there. So that's going to help. I think it's going to help OU on the offensive side of things recruiting. So we've got a bunch of names starting to show up for 125, the 125 event, including the guys I mentioned there, plus Jaden O'Neal should be there. And it's about 5 or 6 other guys that are, if you read some of the other, it's on some of the pay sites. They've gotten the names yet. I haven't quite gotten to confirm the names elsewhere, but recruiting's getting going. Mm-hmm. I just would hope that by the 25th, we know who our defensive coordinator is going to be. And that person is on campus able to talk about the defense to defensive linemen.
So y'all want to do that or no? Y'all want to go there and talk about what's pretty much the hottest rumor right now?
Let's talk.
All right.
Bring it up.
So people, I'm not gonna lie, like this was kind of brought to our attention, not just because of kind of word of mouth, or well, honestly, it was word of mouth. Like this is something that we were texting about, and something that just kind of came across to us. Now, I'm not gonna say we were the first to discover it or the first to this or whatever. A little bit hesitant to talk about some things that we just literally do not know. We could speculate and do rumor mill and try to clickbait videos about it, but here we are. Look, guys, I don't know. Jim Knowles, Ohio State, former Oklahoma State guy, if some of you guys don't know, which I'm sure everybody knows by now. Jim Knowles, here's my 2 cents about it. I think it would, and I hate to do this because this is the Horns Down podcast, but think about now. I'm going to liken it to this, but I still think that BV's a better defensive coordinator. If he went back to be a defensive coordinator, he's better defensive coordinator than PK. That's just my thing, right? But
ain't even close.
But bringing in somebody like that is damn near close to is pretty much on the same level, or honestly, maybe even better, a step up. Like bringing in Gary Patterson, like that Texas defense went to a different level when Patterson came and did a little bit of install on there. I don't care if he was an analyst or anything like that. He was helping in that room. He helped in a major way, and they've reaped some benefits off of that. But what I'm trying to say, people, this is a kind of move like that would be great, simply because you're marrying two philosophies, two different schemes with each other. They complement each other. I know a lot of people say, okay, well, BV's going to call the office next year. He very may well, but who's not to say that if Jim Knowles was to come here, you're sitting there talking about somebody who that secondary, let's just be real. Like it took Lincoln a second to figure that shit out. Like it's difficult. He figured it out, but it took him a second to figure it out. That secondary, I mean, that's a guy that loves coverage sacks, loves to try to lock people up, try to gridlock you basically with that secondary. You're marrying that with a guy like BV, who's blitz heavy, wants to control the game at the line of scrimmage, wants to do different things with his freaks, right? Freak athletes that are playing those positions. I mean, you're trying to get back to that level. Obviously you have the Jaden Jacksons and guys like that, but you're talking about when he had Brian Breesy playing DN, when we all know, I mean, let's just be real. We talked about it before. D-tackle, right? Yep. But when you got guys like that are freakishly athletic or whatever, you control that line of scrimmage, that front seven is hard to move the ball on itself. Couple that with what he and or Jim Knowles would want to do with the cheetah or nickelback, whatever they would call it at that point. I mean, come on, man. Like that could be very scary for you to go up, especially if they're able to play with leads or just play with a competent offense and play complementary football. It would be very scary. That's my 2 cents on it. Do I see it happening? I'm being honest with you guys. I don't see it happening. I think that either you're going to see I'm 60-40 on 60% promotion within 40%. Go and find somebody else, possibly Wes Goodwin, to come in. I think those are more realistic options than going and getting a Jim Knowles. I have no intel. Those are just my 2 cents on it. As far as I think it would be great, I think it could work.
I think you're catching at the dot for a few reasons. Obviously, having this fiance living in Oklahoma City, having family in the area, and also the fact that him and Larry Johnson hate each other's guts. And he doesn't love what they do, as far as they're not on the same page when it comes to how many down linemen he wants to have into the game. So there are a few dots you can connect. Am I going to sit here and tell you that I think he's coming? Not really. I'd have to wait and see that happen. Am I worried about whether he comes or not? Not really, because I feel like, while I do feel it would signal to me that you're probably willing to give BV another year and settle this out, because you've got two brand new coordinators again. I think that would, and if you're getting a guy like Knowles, you're going to have to, it's an investment. So you're not going to want to do that for a 1-year rental. I don't believe that. Would it be cool if he did? Sure. I think it would be great because it would allow BV to really focus, because this is not the kind of guy that you're going to hire and then micromanage him if you're Brent Venables. You can't. So do I think it would be a great move? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it would be a great move. In the end, I do believe that it could be a bit of a long shot, right? Could be a bit of a long shot. And I don't even know that you really have to do it if you're Oklahoma anyway, because the way I look at it is if he is on the hot seat, you're probably not going to get him his hands out of the cookie jar anyways. He's going to continue to do what he does and call the defense and do things the way he wants to do it. If you can trust this offense to do its thing, then it should be fine with or without this guy. That's just my feeling on it. Chris Mason. What the fuck is that?
What are you doing?
Well, I'm debating how strong my limbs are to avoid me getting tar and feathered.
Oh yeah, no. Look, you miss on this, and you miss on the
So Mr. I would have left him at the effing Baton Rouge airport is still on staff right now. So I don't understand. So all right. So putting my Joe John Finley prediction, which I can't believe hasn't paid off yet, in a parking lot. Obviously, OU wants to hire Knowles. That's the number one strategy that they're doing. Because if it wasn't, they would have done something else by now. The only reason to be waiting right now is Knowles. That's it. Otherwise, you'd have made some other move, unless there's some NFL guy you're waiting on, and I've not heard anything about that. And I guess that's always something OU could go back to if they don't get Knowles. So all right, I'll just fuck it. I'll say it. Jim Knowles is our defensive coordinator by February 1st.
All right, look, okay. And Jason, you heard it. I heard it. Next Monday, national playoff.
What did you say?
Exactly. Look, if true, Chris Mason.
Well, if it's true, that intro video for the first one that we meet afterwards just needs to have my logo. You guys maybe really little small video versions of you. Me big.
Jason, make it happen, Jason. Make it happen, Jason.
More
of a. This is a Chris Mason production.
Send me some glamour shots. I got you, bro.
A little more of this is a Chris Mason production, conceived and produced by Chris Mason, starring K. Chris and Jason Watkins. Something along that lines. But you feel free to put a goat head on me and change it up if I'm wrong. But yeah, to me, as Topher B is saying, if OU was getting nothing from Knowles, they would have already done something. I mean, you don't need any more bad optics out of this. Except
that now you have to worry about do they make a big move money wise to keep him around, particularly if they win the Natty.
But again, if he wins the Natty, then everyone's like, well, if he wins the Natty, he's staying around. I'm like, well, he's already going to a national championship. It's only down from here. He's losing all his veterans. That defense is being gutted. I mean, they got talent out the ass at Ohio State. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's being gutted significantly.
Sure.
So, if you've done what you need to do at Ohio State, maybe it's time for a different challenge and a different motivation. And I mean, look at the Penn State lost their guy to Clemson, which on the face of it doesn't make any sense at all, right? But the guy's from that part of the country. His daughter lives nearby, and he wanted to, and obviously James Franklin is probably a pain in the ass to work for. That's me interpreting that. So to me, the fact that I noticed like a bunch of defensive coordinators have moved around. Like Miami just hired a guy. The Tennessee guy just got re-upped. And the Penn State guy just moved around. OU's not talking to any of these guys. Or there's no hint that OU was involved with them, bringing them in like this. So OU is basically all in one action and ready to fall back into a retreat play with Wes Goodwin. It doesn't add up to me. So that's my statement, because everybody else is talking this all down. And I'm like, well, there's obviously something there. I mean, or you would have done something different. You'd have done the Wes Goodwin hire when it was a positive spin.
These are more dots to connect. I agree.
So it's just, and like I said, this is Ohio State's year to win it all, right? They went all in portal, all in with their fifth-year senior guys, with all their other talent they have, and you win at Ohio State. Why stick around with Ryan Day when you get your teeth kicked in by Michigan again next year? And this team, with whatever quarterback you have, isn't as good. It's only down from here. But you get OU, get money, rebuild that, be part of OU coming back, and then just where you want to place, where you want to coach. Maybe this is your capstone job. You like living in Stillwater. Well, if you like being in Stillwater, then Norman's going to seem like, Shangri frickin' Law, right? So if you like being in Oklahoma, then maybe this all works out. So to me, that's what's going on. If it falls flat on my face, then, so be it. But I think that's the best move. It's the best move for OU. Allows Brent to be the CEO guy. That's kind of what they want. You'd go from Luttrell and Alley to Arbuckle and Knowles. That's the kind of move that settles the program, gets you moving in the right direction, allows Brent to spend more time recruiting, doing what he does best, selling the program, pitching the program to kids, and he's less in the weeds with the defense, and that gets us where we need. That gets us heading on the path that we need to go. I think you meld the two defenses together. I think Knowles and Brent would sit down with a whiteboard and just come up with hell for offensive coordinators, and Brent can focus game day on the game day stuff. We've seen Marcus Freeman has a good Al Golden and Knowles that's a one-to-one kind of comparison, right? Very close. Notre Dame, the guy at Notre Dame, right? Al Golden, similar age to Knowles, a lot of similar background, defensive coordinator. And that's allowed Marcus Freeman to focus on being a game day coach. And he's gotten better year over year over year. So that's my pitch. I think if OU's not, if OU was planning to fire Brent, you wouldn't let this story linger around. You would have already told him, pick up Wes Goodwin on the cheapest freaking contract you can find, so we don't have to pay him much money when we fire your ass. The fact that
I think they're going to make a run at him. I just don't know that
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If you're going to make a run at him, then again, money's not everything. That's a naive viewpoint, but Knowles may decide that he wants a new challenge, and he just needs OU to meet or beat Ohio State, just so he can say that from his agent's commission standpoint. But that's my read on this. There's way too. OU should have been doing, and if they don't get in, if he's really not in play, and we find this is all a mirage, then it just proves that Brent isn't managing things the way he needs to be managing things, because he should have hired Wes Goodwin a week ago and not had this thing float around the optics of this to float around. And Joe C should have killed this and said, frickin' get your guy hired so these rumors stop, so we don't have egg on our face after the championship game when I'm talking about some guy that we have no business trying to acquire. That ain't happening either. So I think a run's happening. Maybe it'll go back and forth. He decides to stay at Ohio State and uses us to get a million more out of them. His agent obviously could be pushing that. So, but to me, the fact that it's Wednesday, and everything says it's Knowles or bust, tells me that something's going on. So that's the limb I'm out on. It's a thin limb, but if it pays off, I think it pays off for the program. It's It's a strong sign that Brent's willing to do what he needs to do to be the CEO coach.
I think it would be a big move on his part to be able to hand it over to somebody like that too.
Yeah, to hand it over.
He's not in his lineage, and they haven't worked together. So I mean, that'd be a big move on his part, no doubt.
But it's a veteran guy. There's no doubt that this guy can call OU's defense, and Brent can say, "Here's some things." And Brent can during the week say, "Here's what I see on film," and Knowles can say, "Here's what I see on film. Let's attack this way." And then Brent says, "Go do it on game day. I'm going to go meet with the special teams and offensive guys, see where we are, and be focused on making sure on game day we are buttoned down as possible."
Working on situational play calling and decision making.
Which linebackers out there. I don't want you worried about that. I want you 4 steps ahead. Play chess on game day, not checkers. To be simple.
Well, people, you heard it here. Chris Mason has said it, so we stand behind Chris Mason right now. Trust me, we definitely stand behind him.
Way behind him.
Y'all throwing rocks.
So you ever seen Stripes? The movie Stripes, Bill Murray, the classic Bill Murray movie, where Hawker is like 2 people left. Were AWOL last night. I need these people to step forward before I make them, and then. Howard Rabius character moves forward, and Bill Murray is indicating he's going to do it too, but he leaves him like hanging out to dry, out there by himself. That's how I'm feeling right about this.
The way you should.
Nobody told you had to roll there, dude.
Way he should be feeling is like he old boy off of Hangover when he was out there saying, "Hey, we're the 3 best friends anybody can have." Because right now I'm looking at you like I don't know this guy. I don't know. This is crazy. This is wild.
It's more dots to connect, as I said. I think that I can see it happening. I'm not positive that I still believe it's going to happen, but I definitely understand where you're going with. I think that they're certainly looking like they're going to make a run at him.
I mean, something's going on because otherwise, why would you? I mean, you've got kids coming in 125. You don't want to have as many staff members locked down as possible for your first junior day. And you could have promoted internally, which my sources said was never going to happen because of the optics of, if nothing else, the Luttrell situation has made internal promotions toxic for the next God knows how long. But you would have done something if you wanted Goodwin to be your guy. You'd have just made the move already. So I don't know. We'll see. Going to either be very, very right or very, very wrong, and I'm perfectly fine with that stance. Because Joe John is like a 1,300-pound weight around my neck as you guys dump me off the fishing boat. My Joe John prediction. I mean, I can't believe they haven't cashiered that guy. It's crazy.
Hey, look, once they get done with you, Chris Mason, next week, I'm going to tell Jason when we out there in that middle of, what is it, Lake Thunderbird. I'm telling you, drop the fucking body in the drop the bags, drop the bricks.
Hey, put the bricks in that motherfucker.
Drop the bricks first. Drop the bricks first.
That's the way it works sometimes.
All right, people. Look, we've been out here for about 1 hour and 18 minutes. 130 plus people in the lobby, maybe more. Like and subscribe, do all those different things. All 3 channels. Hall of Fame College Football Podcast with the coach. Shout out, Coach. Sooners 360, Chris Mason. You heard it, guys. The Patreons, the websites, all the content that they're pumping out, and all the rest of this thing. Go like and subscribe. Go do all those different things. Horns Down Podcast. Definitely like, subscribe, do all those different things. Follow us on Twitter. We're on Twitter. People are active. Chris Mason is active. He's telling you about the recruits, about different things. He's highlighting certain things that he's seeing from Grayson, the whole Grayson Harris, all the rest of that stuff. Like he was telling you guys for weeks, like, hey, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. We heard it. Okay. So Jason, every show that he's pumping out, all the rest of this stuff, we're giving you content, people. So definitely go ahead and check it out. But yeah, we talked about recruiting, talking about the portal, talking about executive orders, NIL, talked about all of those different things. We even talked about Jim Knowles. So, like I said, like, subscribe, share this with people. Let us know for sure. Let's go ahead, and we'll see you when we see you.